A great paint job on a car with a truly flat finish and well-defined reflections doesn't start with putting paint in a gun. It starts well before that, with the repair process and the bodywork done correctly. How expensive your paint is and how good of a painter you are really doesn't matter if the bodywork isn't correct. In this video, I'm going to give you some insight into my repair process, and hopefully you'll understand what separates a cheap paint job from a true restorative finish like we've done to this Del Sol. It can be difficult to judge how much labor it's going to take to correct prior repairs that are done to a car. In this case, the left quarter panel had some kind of shoddy repair done to it in the past. We identified an area where the holes were drilled through this quarter panel when we did the teardown process, but it's hard to fully assess how much sheet metal repair it's going to need until we fully remove the body filler down to bare metal. Why this is important is because body filler is porous and it's going to readily absorb moisture even if it's just from humidity in the air. Leaving holes behind your repair is just inviting moisture in and cause future corrosion, and it's going to cause our paint job to fail in the future. We can see evidence of this when we start to sand into that body filler from the outside. This little brown spot is literally rust that is starting to creep into that porous body filler as more moisture enters from the backside through those holes. After removing all their body filler, we were able to see there was a large valley still left on the edge of the wheel opening. Not only did this cause them to have to use a lot more body filler than was necessary if they had just straightened the metal, but leaving that metal mashed in that spot caused an area further back on the quarter panel to bulge out. They had to spread a lot more body filler halfway back to the taillight just to try and make the panel look like that bulge wasn't there. So our repair started by straightening out the pinch weld along that wheel arch and getting that area straight. We could then weld up the holes, correct the body line, and then proceeded to do some stud pulling and shrinking of the rest of the sheet metal to get it back truly where it was supposed to be. We then finished this repair with a lot less body filler than what it had before, and we sealed up the entire area with epoxy. This was the only area of the car that we actually had to remove the original finish down to metal to make this kind of correction to the sheet metal. Every other repair we did as far as dents on this vehicle, we used PDR methods. Incorporating paintless dent repair techniques in with this paint job allows us to remove the dents without disturbing the original factory corrosion protection. This makes it a cost-efficient way to get a good, long-lasting paint job on this car. It is possible to do even better and fully strip a panel down to metal and completely seal the bare metal with epoxy, but on this particular project, that would be overkill. The majority of the repairs were done using PDR, with some areas only requiring a very light coat of glaze to get it ready for primer. As stated in the first video, there were a few areas such as behind the windshield and along pinch welds and seams where we would find minor corrosion. All of these areas were stripped down to bare metal and coated with epoxy before moving on with a high build primer over the entire vehicle. You'll see the entire car is sanded at this point, and anywhere that we had to sand out rock chips or otherwise perform repairs that required exposing bare metal, we made sure to coat these areas with epoxy for the best corrosion protection possible. We also coated the entire front third of the hood so that it will resist rock chipping in the future. Other rust-prone areas, like the rear wheel wells on these Hondas, also got a thorough coating of epoxy just for good measure. Epoxy primers generally have a window where you need to wait a certain amount of time before you start putting other primers or top coats on top of it, but there's also at the end of that window a time you don't want to go past, otherwise you will have to re-sand everything before applying your next product. This extra time frame is why most body shops that simply do collision repairs only don't even use epoxies. But when it comes to restoration work, you definitely want epoxy used, protecting the metal and generating the best adhesion possible to any of that metal on the car. So while I'm waiting for the beginning of that window, I'm getting all the other parts such as the target top, the fenders, and the bumpers all sanded out and ready to get prepped for paint. After sanding into several panels, I determined that this is definitely not the factory paint on this car. Because we're seeing so much clear coat failure, I can only assume that they used a cheap product when they went to paint. So we made sure to fully remove the clear coat, especially from the top panels, to make sure this doesn't become an adhesion issue for our paint. Many people don't realize the amount of labor it takes to truly get a car ready for a great paint job. Between all of the bodywork, sanding the entire vehicle, and even the tedious tasks like removing PPF films, adhesives, and making sure everything is perfectly clean, this all adds up to a massive amount of labor cost. So if someone is offering a cheap paint job, you need to ask, where are they cutting corners? My goal here is to focus on quality and longevity so that you end up with a paint job that looks great and lasts a really long time. Imagine what would have happened if I had just tried to stack more paint on top of these pieces. So after stripping those plastic pieces and sanding all the other parts, we're now ready to apply high build primer to everything. You can think of high build primer as a filler. It all gets sanded down with blocks to get the contours correct and everything perfectly flat. This can be a very labor-intensive process because you are sanding every square inch of the surfaces that you intend to paint, and you are sanding them manually. This is the best way to get every contour perfect and have a surface that's truly ready to paint. This is the part that I see a lot of people get lazy and they whip out a DA sander and just kind of knock the texture down. And that's okay if you don't care about having those true, beautiful reflections on the final finish. But if you want everything to look as good as it can look, there's no shortcutting this process. To block sand every single piece of this car before the refinish starts took about 40 hours of labor. When this blocking process is done correctly, it will also help us identify any other areas that there might be slight high or low spots, such as this area just below the passenger side door handle, where there's a slight low spot that we can see with the guide coat still showing as we block across it. I was able to get this area flattened out without applying any body filler, but we did have to re-prime that spot and block it again. The last repair process I'm going to show in this video is what we did for the bumpers. Whenever I spot prior repairs or paint work on the bumpers, it's going to be best to fully remove those coatings so that doesn't become an adhesion issue. A lot of repair shops don't put flex additive in their paint, causing paint cracking, and you can't stop paint cracking unless you remove those coatings. In the case of the rear bumper, there was a very large section that was covered with body filler, which is highly likely to crack if you nudge that bumper into anything later. After removing all of that body filler on the bumper, it came down to 2 tiny little license plate bolt imprints. So I put 2 small little dabs of flexible filler and that was all it needed. I don't know why they used so much body filler. Most of the surface area of both bumpers was sanded all the way down to plastic. I then applied adhesion promoter to the entire bumper, and we applied primer on top of that was mixed with flex additive. We also did the full blocking process to every contour on that bumper and made it look brand new. I hope you'll come back and join us for part 3 of this video where we get this car in the paint booth and I'll talk about the refinish process and what it takes to get this beautiful finish on this car.